Are these irritating pop-ups asking you to pay to reject cookies even legal? I know that this is a question lots of you have asked because I've received lots of tags and emails and comments and so on about exactly this. The short answer is, broadly speaking, yes, it's legal, but not without its criticisms, which I'll come to later in this video. But there's an even bigger problem, which you really need to stay and watch for. Now, when we talk about cookies, they are tiny files, or not so tiny in some cases, that store information on your computer that is shared with the website that you visit, so long as you consent, which is why you get an annoying pop-up at the bottom to say, do you accept cookies or not? Which is really irritating, but there is a good reason for it, because there are first and third party cookies. Now, I don't know about the Sun here, so I'm not speaking about the Sun in particular, but there are a number of third party cookies that you really should avoid. But in any event, the Sun website here confirms that through information collected on your device, visiting the website, including cookies, we and our 371 partners can modify our adverts and content based on your user profile, measure the performance, and so on and so forth. Now, the information that they talk about is under the profile section here, which says information about your activity on this device. For instance, forms you submit, non-advertising content you look at, can be stored and combined with other information about you, such as your previous activity on this service or other websites or apps or similar users. This is then used to build and improve a profile about you, which might, for example, include possible interests and personal aspects. Your profile can be used also later to present content that appears more relevant based on your possible interests, such as by adapting the order in which content is shown to you so that it's easier for you to find content that matches your interests. In short, and confirmed on their privacy policy here, they use a combination of performance of a contract or legitimate interest or consent legal bases to collect and store this information. Now, speaking very generally now, most of the companies that use cookies in this way will store information and either share it or even sell it onto third parties. Now, when they share it onto third parties, they might in turn share it again, and there are lots of data brokers that ultimately share and sell on your information, you as a package. Now, the trouble with that is that they put this information into a profile about you and they collate it with all sorts of other information. The more information they have, the more valuable that becomes as an asset to sell on. And then ultimately that can end up in the wrong hands. Now, we've had clients coming to us genuinely that have had loans and contracts taken out in their name that they didn't authorize. And so these data brokers have ultimately made it possible for their information to end up on the dark web in the wrong hands and people impersonating them and taking out loans in their name. That is why, this video is ideal to mention a partner to you, which I work with on this channel, which is called Incogni. It is a very simple service that you sign up with them. They contact all of these data brokers and they require that they remove all of your information from their servers and no longer sell it on. That is both under the law of the United Kingdom and under the United States law. Obviously, I get you a fantastic discount for this with the link that's in the description below and that's been on screen, which is 60% using the code below, which also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And as you can see, it vastly reduced spam. Some of you guys have told me that you've had a significant reduction in spam emails and phone calls after using Incogni. And from my perspective, it significantly reduces your financial risk of being impersonated and having people take out loans in your name. So once again, whilst we're on the subject of cookies and data and people sharing your information and even selling on your information, check out Incogni. It's a fantastic service. I use it myself and I've seen the results myself. So the link's in the description. So now let's talk about why this is such a legal issue. Well, the ICO did a call for views on this consent to pay business model, which is essentially you either agree to all of the cookies or you pay to reject them. Now, the principal point of law here, aside from simple contract, which I'll come back to in a minute, the principal point of law was whether or not this was a completely fair and free choice for you to make as the end user consumer, whether or not you accept these cookies, else pay a fee. Now, the Sun, taking it as an example, I've read somewhere that it was quoted to be the highest fee, if not one of the highest fees. Don't quote me on that because that may change obviously day to day, or it may have been wrong where I read it, but nonetheless, that's what I read. They charge $4.99 per month to read the website. Now, I would go out on a bit of a limb here and say that respectfully, I don't really agree with some of the commentators that I've read that said it's not a free and fair choice to either to accept all cookies or to pay for them, which, as it said in the article that I've read, most people don't understand cookies and what they do. Most people don't understand what these companies are going to do with those cookies. Now, whilst I do agree with that to a large extent, most people do not read the small print. Most people do not really understand what's happening with the cookies. I mean, my video here, I've pointed you to Incogni because a lot of people don't realize and understand that your information's been collected into a pile, given to data brokers, and then sold on to other parties and sold on again and ends up in the hands of people that impersonate you. Most people don't realize that. So I accept that part. But for me, it comes down to a simple point here. If you land on this website, you have a very clear choice. You either accept the cookies because in your mind that it's not going to get any information on you and you have no worry about it whatsoever, so you just accept it. And if a company collecting your information does go on to break the law in how much information they collect and what they do with it, that's a separate issue. But regardless of that, if you know that they are either collecting your information or you're paying to reject them collecting that information, to me, that is still a fair and free choice. Now, if I landed on this and I didn't want my information stored and shared and so on, then I would either pay or just exit the website. Now, I expect that some websites might suffer quite a drop of viewership because they're asking people to pay. So why are they asking to pay? Well, that's quite simple. It's targeted advertising. So a company providing horse clothing is obviously looking for people that are interested in horses. The companies will know that, selling the adverts will know that if you've got a history of browsing horse websites and searching for terms involving horses, browsing articles that are involving horses, and if not, then it's just random. And so the click-through and the conversion rate to sale from the number of people visiting is going to be far lower than targeting those people that are interested in horses. Now, that is a gross simplification of advert targeting. So those of you that are about to shout and scream in the comment section that it's far more complicated than that, of course it's far more complicated than that. It is far more complicated than anybody can possibly realize, unless you're in that market. They will track things such as what machine you use, what browser you use, what version of the browser you use, because that will tell them whether you're up to date on certain things, what size of font on the screen that you're using, what time of day, obviously whether you're on a laptop or on a phone, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows, whether it's Android, or all these kind of things. There are literally thousands of data points that all come together to make the perfect target for their adverts. And so naturally, those highly targeted adverts are going to be much more effective. Otherwise, it's a scattergun approach, putting an advert in a newspaper, hoping that someone reads the paper, is interested in what they've got to sell. That is just hoping someone stumbles across it. Now, the ICO's view, which is the data protection regulator for the United Kingdom, says data protection law allows for a wide range of different approaches and business models. It balances fundamental rights like the right to privacy with the rights of others like the freedom to conduct a business, which is something I'll come back to. As our guidance says, some types of access mechanisms aren't likely to comply with expectations in data protection law for consent to be freely given. For example, they don't provide people with a free choice about whether to receive personal ads. Now, this is a bit like those pre-checked consent boxes. They said, no, we want an actual definitive action by the end user to check the box. So one of the things that was originally complained of was a pre-checked box. So that had to be removed. So you couldn't rely on a pre-checked box for consent. It says this can be the case with cookie walls that deny access to a service unless users consent to personalized ads. Now, again, I would subtly disagree and say that you have a choice to have your information collected for personalized ads or don't read the website. Now, that is not discriminatory of any protected characteristic. For example, it is simply, we need to collect this information for our business model, therefore we need you to agree, otherwise don't read the website. And in this new consent or pay phenomenon, they're asking you to pay for it. However, the ICO does go on to say, in principle, data protection law does not prohibit business models that involve consent or pay. However, Any organization considering such a model must be careful to ensure that consent to processing of personal information for personalized advertising has been freely given and is fully informed, as well as capable of being withdrawn without detriment. And goes on to things that they should consider. So moving back to the Sun, it does explain in quite some detail what information they gather and why. And if you want even more information, there is a lengthy website on here which tells you everything about the information that they gather, with whom they share it, and so on and so forth. So in my view, although most people may not want to go and read that, it is there for people to see. And so whilst I agree that many people may not understand exactly what information has been gathered and for what purpose and with whom they share it and so on, it is available on that website. And so if you do disagree with your data being collected, you can either pay to reject it and then read the website, because that's their business model, or you could just exit the website. In my view, you have a completely free choice to make. Personally, I've found myself, when it gives me a very straightforward option of accept all or reject all, I will invariably reject all cookies. And if it doesn't do that and it says accept all cookies or go to the settings, sometimes I'll click the settings and then I'll make sure they're all unchecked and then save the settings, which is an extra step which I really don't like, but I'll find myself doing that if I really do want to read the article. Sometimes, by the way, you can disable JavaScript, which also disables all of the things with pop-ups and everything else. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it works. Nothing illegal in that as well, by the way. But when I've come up against one or two of these just recently that says pay or accept all cookies, I found myself just exiting the website. Let me know what you've done in the comments below. Have you come across these and said, no way, not paying you and you're not having my information? Some of you, I dare say, may say, well, just because you've asked me to pay, I'm going to deny you access to the cookies anyway, whereas you may have done otherwise. So I don't know. This might have an unexpected result for some of these companies. But either way, from a contract perspective, there's nothing unlawful about this whatsoever, so long as it's clear, so long as it's reasonable and fair and so on. I mean, you as a consumer, if a term were to be particularly unfair and onerous to your detriment, particularly given the nature and the strength of the parties involved, that might make it unfair. But from a very straightforward standpoint, if you want to read The Sun without them collecting information on you, you pay your £5 a month or $4.99 a month. I think that's perfectly reasonable from a contract point of view. I actually think it's perfectly reasonable from a data protection point of view. You've got a choice. Read the website, not read the website. And if you want to read the website, they either collect the information or you pay your fee. It's as simple as that. But bearing in mind all the websites that you've ever visited, that you've ever allowed to collect your data, they might be in the hands of data brokers somewhere. And that's irrespective of you ever visiting that same website again. Not saying that's what The Sun does. I would hope that it doesn't, but who knows? So much of your information might end up on these data brokers servers. If you want to help to get rid of that, check out Incogni, linked below. I use it myself. I wouldn't recommend something to you that I don't use myself. Use my discount, use my code. So with that, I hope it's answered the question for the many of you that have asked. And as always, thank you for watching.